Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, depending on from where you are joining us from. And welcome to this special SBL webinar support for September 2025 exams. My name is Richa and I work as Education Support Manager at ACCA. So our session today, Advancing Your Studies, is designed to help you understand how applied skill concepts are integrated into strategic business leader exam and why this exam is different from any other ACCA exam. Sean Purcell has joined us today to deliver this special session. And during this session, Sean will talk about why are professional skills essential in SBL, how they help shape and support your future career in finance. He will also make us understand that why consistent question practice is key to exam success. And we will also be covering some of the live questions that are coming in from you in Q&A box. Before I hand things over to Sean, I would like to briefly run through a few quick housekeeping items for you. At the bottom of your screen, there are a number of buttons you can use. Click the help icon for quick access to resources and information that can assist you with any technical issue you may have during this session. Make sure your both slide and media player icons are selected. You will need to view both throughout the webinar. Use the chat function to engage with fellow participants. Please avoid sharing any personal information in the chat. Look for the icon that resembles like a file. Clicking on this will give you access to helpful materials related to today's webinar, including direct links. Feel free to move things around on your screen and resize the windows however you like. And if you ever cannot hear us or the visuals disappear, just try refreshing your browser. By registering for this webinar, you will get an email tomorrow with all the details on how you can watch it again. So don't worry if you miss anything or run into technical issues, you will be able to catch up with the recording later. I'm going to hand over to Sean in a moment and we'll be back with you towards the end of the session. In the meantime, if you want to ask ACCA a question, then please post them in Q&A box. Just a quick note that we may not be able to respond to everyone individually, whether through the chat or verbally, but we will do our best to share questions and answers that are helpful for everyone. With this, I'm handing over to you, Sean.
Okay, thank you very much, Risha. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and well done for making sure that your knowledge of SBL is as good as it can be. On this session, it's here for you. Ask any questions you want, and I literally mean anything, and I will try and answer it and put your mind at rest rather than you worry about it. In terms of me and who am I and what kind of skills do I have to talk to you about SBL? Well, in terms of my background with SBL, when SBL was first launched in 2018, I actually was working on the new introduction from about 2016, wrote all the training on it, spent a lot of time with the education and the examining team, really getting under the skin of what SBL is all about, and then trained chapters, and yeah, so SBL's about anything else. And yeah, interestingly, I do some CPD for qualified people, which is in the area of business partnering and the future of finance, a lot of which is what SBL is preparing you for. So that's a little bit about me. In terms of what we're going to talk about today, first thing we're going to talk about today is just to stress why SBL is very, very different from other ACCA exams, and I'll just explain that difference and how you deal with it. I'll mention, some people ask about, you know, all the applied skills exams that I did. What is the relevance of those to strategic business leaders? So I'll tell you a little bit about that. Very important that we embrace professional skills marks. I'll give you some insight into that. Yeah, what is SBL and the future of finance? You might have looked at recent information ACCA has published on the future of the qualification. SBL is very much part and parcel of that. And a key thing that you have to do on SBL is you have to do lots of question practice. The analogy I use, I think that works best. It's a little bit like learning to drive. Yeah. And you're not going to be that great the first time you do it. But if you don't practice and get in a car and reflect and get better and get back in the car and reflect and get better, you're never going to be to test standard. And that is exactly the same with SBL. So really important that we do question practice. Really important you get onto the iAssess platform and start looking at the questions that are uploaded there for you to practice. So that's what we're going to talk about. And yeah, I'll talk about the resources that are available for you there as well. So hopefully that will cover many things that you need to know. So why is SBL so different? And if you're not familiar, there is quite a broad cross-section of an audience here. So some people will be taking SBL for the first time. Some people maybe didn't approach it correctly last time and are unfortunately having to do it again. So take on board what I say so you don't have to do that. I think what's different about SBL is the approach. Yeah. If I get rather than me tell you, I'll let the examining team tell you. And I think the first thing that the examining team talk about is that they say it's a substantially integrated exam. So what is meant by something that is a substantially integrated exam? Well, what that means is you need to connect things in the context of the case. It's not an exam where you learn lots of technical theory and then kind of regurgitate that theory. I have students on the courses I run who've won prizes in AFM, won prizes in tax, and they really struggle on SBL because what they do to learn SBL is the same as what they did to get a prize in their tax exam or AFM exam, and that's not going to work on SBL. So you may be familiar with a model such as Pestel, and yes, you might have excellent knowledge of Pestel, but you're not going to get any marks to regurgitate your knowledge of Pestel, if that makes sense. Yeah. You're not going to be asked or expected to list all the components of Pestel, but what you would need to be able to do would be able to contextualize some of them. Is there economic issues going on in the context of the case? Yeah. So that's the difference in that it's not about demonstrating your technical knowledge. It's about linking that knowledge. The ACCA use a word called synthesize. If you've read some other stuff on the platform, it's kind of connecting the knowledge and the case and making sense of it. So it's an integrated exam. You're acting as a strategic leader in that exam. Yeah. And why has it been introduced? Well, it's been introduced because the workplace is a different place. Yeah. And the workplace doesn't want people that can regurgitate lots of tax facts or lots of financial management facts or lots of financial accounting facts, because I have a bot that can do that. And, those skills are less relevant. What is more relevant is being able to give insight into the tax calculations or financial accounting calculations and so on. So, it's basically the emphasis here, I think that's worth pointing out, is it's about the workplace. Yeah. So you need to show how you would behave in the workplace. And that is the key to it. And sometimes when there's a question in an exam, people say, well, what model is it? Is it Pestel? Is it Five Forces? It might not be a model at all. It's asking you, what do you think? What do you think? And you would be able to answer that. But because you feel you have to include theory, which gets no marks, you struggle to think. So it's very important to make sure you visualize where you are in the context of the case and use theory and academic learning to help develop your answers, but you're not going to get any marks for actually revealing that academic model. Yep, so it's a workplace. It's basically a practical exam. You have to behave often as a management consultant, advising the board to do things. And, you know, some of these things you will know from your business knowledge. It's highly unlikely that you will be acting as a strategic business leader, but you need to have empathy with what a strategic business leader is about. And a strategic business leader is someone that operates at the top of an organization. Yeah, they don't get involved in all of the minutiae. So yeah, that's hopefully a good explanation by the examining team of what SBL is, what is the reasoning behind it, and how it is different to all the other exams you've done. But actually, it's probably, I would argue, just, you know, being up front here, I'm an SBL lecturer. I love SBL. That's the only thing I talk about. But I would argue it's the most relevant exam for your future career. Yeah, the skills you will be introduced to and to think about are the most important skills. Yeah. So, yeah, let's not get involved in too much technical detail. Keep it at a fairly high level would be my advice. So in terms of why has it been introduced, you might have reviewed the recent update to the ACCA qualification, Accounting for the Better World, Redefining the Profession. To be honest, a lot of what is being talked about there was acknowledged in the introduction of SBL all the way back, 2016. So SBL is further on that journey, but SBL has been the pioneer in that space, I would argue. So what else are we going to say about why it has been introduced? Well, we've got change, we've got technology, we've got a lot of our business stakeholders can read accounts now. Yeah, so it's not all down to the accountant. Most senior management have commercial awareness. So therefore, it's not just about producing the accounts. There's new capabilities. We've got to help our business stakeholders and colleagues to understand and get insight into the numbers that are produced. And to do that, there's different competencies needed. How we communicate with people, how we structure our language, and we'll talk more about that in the professional skills marks. We don't take things at face value. We'll talk again in professional skills marks about being skeptical. And it's not just about the numbers. It's about making sure we help create value for the business, so commercial acumen. So new skills and competencies are the area that SBL is helping you develop. And SBL will develop and assess these skills in a practical role-based exam. So that's what we have. That's what we have with SBL. That's the rationale from the examining team. Just in case we are not familiar with the syllabus is a fairly broad, strategic area where we have to understand leadership, we have to understand governance, but not in the minutiae and detail that it would be examined at applied skills. We have to appreciate risk and strategy. We should be fully familiar with developments in technology, and these are ever moving. So it's really important that you read the articles the ACCA put out and not just be looking at technical stuff. A lot of it, past exam questions have been linked to articles because the articles are very fresh and of the moment. We need to appreciate control and audit, again, from a top level though, a strategic leader level. Finance, you're never going to have to do detailed financial calculations, but you need to draw insight from calculations that might be given. So you're normally going to have to use the numbers rather than calculate the numbers. And then more modern things in the area of innovation and performance excellence. Again, the syllabus, make sure you are aware of them. Now, 80% of the exam is dealing with technical, but I think it's very difficult to separate technical and professional skills. We're going to talk about professional skills in detail in a moment, but in addition to the technical things we need to know, we need to develop professional skills in communication, commercial acumen, analysis, skepticism, and evaluation. And I'll explain more about those. And if you're not sure about them, please come back to me with questions. Yeah. But I think the key thing I want you to embrace is you need to see the big picture. You're not going to say, oh, I got 0.13% and the answer says 0.12%. Strategic leader's not really bothered about that. Yeah, he's bothered about the strategic big picture. And you need to not be at the operational level down below, getting involved in all the minutiae calculations. You need to be at the strategic level. You're acting as a strategic business leader. And yes, you will fine tune your understanding of that by doing lots of question practice and getting feedback on that if you can. A quick reminder of the exam, if you're not aware, the exam is 3 hours and 15 minutes long. There's 80 technical marks, 20 professional skills marks. You only need 50 to pass. And if you manage your exam correctly, that is an achievable objective, and SBL shouldn't get in the way of you qualifying as an accountant, as long as you embrace what I'm asking you to embrace. You have a pre-seen information, and then you have extra information provided to you. All of the tasks are based on that same information. You need to blend your technical and professional skills. You need to synthesize them. Don't see professional skills as mutually exclusive. They are integrated. Very important. So as I say, you'll get pre-seen material, 2 weeks. Please don't go crazy on that. That's just to make sure you're familiar with the industry, familiar with any terminology, so that in the exam, you have no confusion with regards to that. In the exam, you will get extra information, more exhibits linked to the pre-seen material, but fresh information, and then you will have to answer 4 tasks. You have to also be aware that you will be asked to present your answer like you would in the workplace. So what do we have to use in the workplace? We have to use things like letters, reports, emails, memos. Now people say, oh, can you give me a pro forma for a memo? Well, I say, no, just be professional. So in the workplace, not every company will do a memo the same way or a report the same way. But if you want some guidance, you can look at suggested answers on the CPE platform. But slides, often we have to present slides. The marks for slides will always be in the notes, and you need to make a good connection between the bullet points on the slide and the notes below the slide. Slide functionality is provided on the platform. There was something in a specimen paper asking you to do a heat map, and a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, but you just had to use your initiative, really. You didn't have to do a beautiful heat map. You just had to think about, you know, in the area of risk, what are the key things, probably impact and likelihood, and that kind of provided a rough heat map, and that would have got you all the marks. What else? Working papers, briefing notes, press release was asked a few exams ago. I mean, if you watch the news, when someone's gone missing or a company has, I don't know, done something wrong, there's a press release, and just needs to be in that kind of tone. And yeah, a project initiation document, again, that's something that one would use in project management. Just have to have familiarity. You will get in your exam exhibits, which is extra nuggets of information, which will be presented in formats such as meeting minutes, website pages, risk register. A newspaper article is very common. A spreadsheet with numbers, but normally the outcome of those numbers will also be given. You won't have to calculate them. Research articles, all of these things, and maybe a chairman's report. So you will get those as exhibits. You need to digest, you need to understand, and also professional skills will encourage us not to necessarily take all of that at face value. A newspaper article, a research article, you have to be skeptical. It could be biased. Is there any evidence why it might be biased? And like in the real world, just because MPV says positive, you wouldn't invest. You would have other things you would have to take on board. And that is what SBL is trying to get you to do. Okay, so in terms of the summation of the difference is technical knowledge needs to be applied in a leadership context, a workplace context, and you need to demonstrate professionalism. Okay, so that is quite different to exams which you have done before, and hopefully that makes sense. I will I think we're going to get some repetition. So actually, I'll answer one question here. Anne says, in the exam, the pre-seen information, can we print and take it with us? No, you can't. You get the pre-seen information released by the ACCA if you're registered for the exam. And you can digest and work on that. In the exam, you will get a fresh set of pre-seen. Alan, if I said 4 tasks, I meant 4, well, there's not a standard set of exhibits, but there's 3 tasks in the exam. So apologies if I said 4 tasks, there are 3 tasks in the exam. I meant to say, 4 exhibits, but there could be more. There's no hard and fast rule on the number of exhibits that you will be given. Okay, so hopefully I'm just seeing, there's lots and lots of questions there, but just answering that one, thank you. And yes, those people that learn theory, I get people who come to me who've often failed the exam 2 or 3 times, and they say, I don't understand why I failed because I learn all the textbooks. The textbooks are over 1,000 pages. Would you learn a book to pass your driving test, or would you get in the car and practice? I think you know the answer. So people do fail it by learning lots of theory. And please, please understand the theory, use it to help you develop argument and evaluations, but don't regurgitate the theory. Keep that in mind. You cannot just learn the theory. People think they can. Sadly, they don't pass. Yeah. Without being too blunt, that's what happens. How does it link to the applied skills stage? Well, as I said, the emphasis is not on demonstrating detailed technical knowledge. It's about synthesizing that knowledge in the context of a commercial situation given in a scenario. Yeah, you act like you are at work. That would be what I would say. Okay, so just reminding you in case you missed, it's a substantially integrated exam. It's about being in the workplace, it's role play, it's practical. Yeah, no other exam is quite like that. So what do we use from our applied skills? Well, I think you would use a lot of the knowledge from your applied skills. You understand, obviously, the things you're required to do exams on, but it will not be examined in the detailed technical way that those issues are examined at applied skills. Yeah, you cannot put SBL on a multi-choice platform. You can put applied skills on a multi-choice platform. So, in summary, do not go and learn technical stuff from the applied skills in detail. Appreciate it and understand it. Yeah, understand that if you've got a lower margin, you might have a higher cost of sales or a lower sales price, but you're not going to get detailed financial accounting questions. And don't spend lots of time redoing applied skills questions. Okay? It's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. What's going to help you is using all the great resources the ACCA have put together and put on the ACCA platform. There's a study hub, but there's lots of other great resources to use there. And please keep away from all the false prophets on Facebook and YouTube. There's an official ACCA channel on YouTube. I've done lots of videos for the ACCA on YouTube. Digest them. There's a good one on how to use the pre-seen. But just be careful. A lot of people seem to like the sound of their own voice on Facebook and YouTube. Check whether they're approved learning providers on the ACCA website. I guarantee none of them are. So if the ACCA hasn't approved them, they're not worth listening to. Okay? Don't waste your time. Spend your time on the platform. Let me talk about professional skills then. In terms of professional skills, we said that's the syllabus, and we had professional skills of communication, commercial acumen, analysis, skepticism, and evaluation. So what are they trying to do? Well, they're kind of giving us a nudge to behave in a certain way. They're putting them as a requirement so that we acknowledge how we need to behave. Let me explain what's going on. Well, it's linked to the future of the profession and how we need to have different competencies. But if we deal with each of these skills, I say, when I'm reading a task, I read the task with the lens of the professional skill required. So what is the professional skill being asked for in the context of the task? And that will actually influence how I communicate. Okay, so as I say there, use them as a lens. So they're crucial. Yeah, as I said before, they're not they're integrated. They're not mutually exclusive from the technical skills. When this was first introduced, people said, oh, I'm just going to try and get the technical skills. I'm not going to bother about the professional. If you don't get the professional skills, you will actually not be able to get as many technical skills, because you will not create an answer in an appropriate way that is required. It's about being professional, not giving me a brainstorm of everything, picking up the best points, making sure that the points are relevant, making sure that they're in the context of the case and not just regurgitation of theory. It wouldn't be professional to repeat points. It's not professional to go off on a tangent talking about things that aren't required. Yeah, these are all things that students do who have not properly embraced the professional skills marks. Yeah. What else would we say? We should be able to prioritize the most important things. We should present things in a way that's easy to digest, as we would need to in the workplace. Yeah. We shouldn't create any faux pas by blatantly getting some fundamental understanding of financial accounts or financial management wrong. And yeah, we need to make sure we're professional. So let's look at each of these skills. Let's try and understand them. Let's look at the discrete aspects of them and tell you how they're marked. Yeah. And the way they're marked is, if you look in the marking scheme on the platform, you'll see that there's 4 categories. And it's a bit strange in that you've got 0, 1.33, 2.66, and 4. That's how it's marked. So 0 for not at all, 1.33 for not so well, 2.66 for quite well, and 4 for very well. And it gives you an indication how that is. The reason that it seems a bit weird, 0.33, 0.6, but it's so that the markers can't sit on the fence. You're either more professional at 2.66 or you're less professional at 1.66, but it's not half marks. That's why that was put in like that, just as a little insight. So if we look at skepticism, okay, as an accountant, we're given some information. We shouldn't just take it at face value. Yeah. What we should do, I'll explain in a moment, but let's just remind ourselves of each of these. If I then go on to communication. So why has this been introduced? Well, accountants historically have had a tendency to talk to people about EBITDA, even use the word accrual. Nobody knows what they're talking about. In the same way, when you hear a doctor talking medical terms to you, or an IT person talking gobbledygook IT terms, that is exactly how accountants come across. So obviously that's not helping people understand the figures. So therefore, with our communication, we need to inform, persuade, and clarify, but we need to make sure when we're doing this that we are appropriately coding our information to the audience who we're talking to. So if I'm talking to other accountants, I would use a lot of financial terminology, but if I was talking to someone from HR, I would talk in an easier to understand way. Also, it's not just you get marks for doing it in report format. There would be some element of the professional skills marks, but not the whole of it. But obviously, if you ask a report or a slide and you don't do it in a slide, well, that would be, if you slide, you would lose them all because you're failing to communicate 100%. Commercial acumen. Commercial acumen is you to be able to be aware where there is potential business value added. Yeah, and where you can maybe demonstrate in your answer that this could be a money-making opportunity, and also appreciate that if we do that, we might upset those people. So showing commercial acumen is not just computer says yes. You're giving more than that. Of course, NPV is positive, but the interest rate was a bit strange that was used. It was a constant cost of capital, blah, blah, blah. Or if we spend, the way I do it, you've got a $5,000 second-hand car, would you put some $10,000 extra alloy wheels on it? That would be crazy. But if you had a $200,000 sports car, you might need to put $10,000 wheels on it. Yeah, so it's being able to make that judgment. That's what commercial acumen is about. Would you put a $100,000 kitchen in your $100,000 house? Probably not. But if it was a $5 million house, you'd probably have to put more than a $100,000 kitchen. Yeah, that's what commercial acumen is about. Analysis means that we've investigated, understood, considered all the information that's relevant to the decision being made. Yeah, so we've analyzed it properly. If we are skeptical, we don't take things at face value. So sometimes the chairman's statement is very bullish and we're doing very well. It's like, why are you saying you're doing well? Because actually sales have gone down for the last 3 quarters. That's not good. And that's what a skeptical accountant would do. You would question the facts. You'd probe them. You'd challenge. Why do you say that? You know, you say it's good, but I don't think it is. Yeah. And you might think, well, that's the salesperson saying it's going to do all of this. Well, of course, the salesman's going to say this is amazing, but you have to have an objective, skeptical opinion. Yeah. And then evaluation is basically, you're doing a proper balance of the pros and cons of what's going on. Yeah. So professional skills marks, really, 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 really important. Yeah. Please don't think they are separate. They color your answer, your emphasis, your tone, the way, and often on a question, it gives you a little bit more insight. Okay, so you get 5 marks for each one. They're all going to be tested. The little summation, if you're going to be skeptical, are you probing, are you questioning, are you challenging? Commercial acumen, are you using judgment, insight, analysis? Are you investigating, inquiring? Communication, are you properly informing? Are you persuading using the right language? And evaluation, are you giving both sides to the story? Okay. So why is question practice so important? Well, question practice is so important because that's how you get better. The only way you're going to learn is make mistakes. So if you're practicing questions and understanding why that question wasn't as good as it could be, you're going to get better. Okay, that's the whole point of doing questions. So really, really important. You really need to spend a little bit of time looking at all the amazing resources that are on the ACCA platform. There's lots of, the ACCA obviously understand, not enough people go on the platform. Yeah. And, if you look at the latest examiner's report, I'm going to do another webinar on an examiner's report, but the latest examiner's report shows that had you read this article and had you looked at this, that was what the question was about. But for whatever reason, people are more interested in listening to Joe Blogs on Facebook, who knows nothing, than going onto the ACCA platform. So please, if you do anything after this webinar, keep away from all the false fake news on Facebook and YouTube. How do we make the most of official resources? Well, in making the most of official resources, I'm going to play you a little video in a moment, just in case there was any problem with the connection. But the thing I particularly like in the resources is...
So there are many fantastic resources available on the ACCA website, but in this short time I thought I would draw your attention to one in particular. So there are many fantastic resources available on the ACCA website, but in this short time I thought I would draw your attention to one in particular.
I'm just trying to get this to come on your screen. I think it's just going to take a moment.
So there are many fantastic resources available on the ACCA website, but in this short time I thought I would draw your attention to one in particular. This is in the area of the ACCA site on Strategic Business Leader, on exam technique. There's another great video, you might recognize that face, on timing. Have a look at that, that's very useful. But this exercise here I would draw your attention to, which is about reading the mind of a marker, and it is a very, very essential thing I would ask you to have a go at. We've got 3 tasks. Let me just very briefly take you through it. So we have a specimen paper here. The specimen paper, so let's just go reasonably quickly. This is a an exam on a company called Courgettes, which is a low-cost airline typical of someone like Southwest Airlines, EasyJet or Ryanair, and there's a load of information on it, and we are given a task. So here the task asks us to prepare briefing notes which outline the problems in culture caused by the previous leadership style and the impact that the current CEO's leadership style has on Courgettes' culture for 12 marks. Professional marks are awarded for demonstrating commercial acumen. And just what's also very important when we're looking at professional skills marks is what it says after the reference to the particular professional skill. And here it says, in showing insight and understanding of the impact of leadership styles on Courgettes' culture for 4 marks. Okay, so what we then do is we go through and look at a good answer and a bad answer. So if I click on the link, it will take me to a good answer. And what you need to do is you need to slowly work through the answer. Firstly, if you look at this answer, it's exactly how I would encourage my students to write an answer. We've got subheadings, we've got white space, we've got an answer whose weight is just enough to be getting some marks. Sometimes, although they're not intended to be realistic answers, official answers are a little bit fat and they have more of a tutorial nature, but this is an answer exactly as I would like a really good student to give. So what happens? Well, we go through. We've got note 1. It says, on note 1, the candidates used an appropriate model to create a clear structure to the answer. They have also clearly answered the requirement where it asks for both problems and improvements. This is a very good answer. So what they have used here, although they don't mention it, they've used what's known as the cultural web, where we look at the organizational structure, power structure, paradigm, symbols as indicators of what the cultural dynamics of a business is. So they've started off with structure, but they've mentioned well, they did actually mention the cultural web, but there would be no need to mention it in the exam. The structure that it creates would get you the marks. So it talks about that note, and as we go through it, you see, you can read that, and we keep scrolling down. We've then got note 2, which talks about the actual introduction. So I'm keeping scrolling up. So no marks for that. It's an introduction. So be careful giving too long introductions. They won't do anything other than take up time if they're too long. We keep going, and then we have a note 3, and it's highlighted the bit the structure might have contributed to the decline in customer satisfaction as well as staff, which made the company less competitive. What's it actually saying there? Well, if we keep scrolling, it says clear identification of a problem, that the hierarchy led to poor communication and low satisfaction. So they'll give you a mark for that. We keep going, we get another note which talks about the next point, where this point is talking about staff being able to voice their needs and ideas, and management are able to manage them better. So can you tell me a little bit more? Yeah, it's a good explanation. It shows changes that came out due to the new management. But again, these points are only getting 1 mark. It's only when you follow through with a so, what, why and a consequence that that 1 mark could become 2. So this point then highlighted again, past leadership, it was top management who had the most power and all staff were afraid of making mistakes about being punished. So that's how it was. And it talks about, yes, very clear. And then obviously the next point says, well, what's happening in the new style? Well, that's note 6. In the new style, they're more in control of their own responsibility. And yes, that's been identified, and that's good. And this answer goes on and on and on. We haven't got time to go through all of it, but if you remember how we started, this is just part of task 1. This does all 3 tasks of an exam, and then it goes on and shows you what on the face looks like an okay answer, but actually the notes explain that actually this is just repeating what's in the scenario, or it's not answering the question that has been asked, and so on. So it's a really good way for you to see what the difference is between a good answer and a bad answer. So make sure you have a good look at the ACCA study platform. Just before we leave, there is other stuff on exam technique here. I've told you about that video. This is the mind of the marker. We've got 3 tasks with 2 answers to each, really worth a look at. talks about exam technique. How do you analyze the pre-scene? You again will get a link to a video here. You might recognize the presenter of that. How do you earn more marks in SBL, and why communication is important? Yeah, make sure you click on these. So just to give you an example, how do we analyze the pre-scene? This again is a recording of another webinar I have done, talking about the pre-scene and talking about how it is not something we're looking to do a question spot on. I talk about how to analyze it, walk through, and key takeaways. So lots and lots and lots of great resources. Unfortunately, students don't take full advantage of all these, and these are just resources available in the area of exam technique. So please stay away from all the false prophets on YouTube and Facebook and stick to the ACCA website. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so that is a summation of just a small part of the information you have available to you. Make sure you're logged on to the new ISS platform and be having a go at the mocks that are all prepared for you. Yeah, I don't understand why people don't do that. You know, it's there for you. It's free. Yeah, please do that. So I've just had a question here which is quite apt. I'm going to be upfront. I've just finished my BPP reading today and have no exam practice as of now. How do I need to? It's not really the best way. It's not about reading and learning theory. It's about using that theory to develop answers to scenario questions. So you need to get onto the ACCA platform. You need to be having a go at questions. You need to be looking at examiner reports to see how students mess up on questions. And that is what's going to help you. Yeah. Which website am I getting Read the Mind of a Marker? That's the ACCA website, which, to be honest, if you are serious about passing your exam in September, you need to be all over. And if you're not, you need to get on it now. I understand that professional marks are awarded for proper use of business language, but does grammar itself affect the professional marks? Not really. It's not, I think the ACCA describe it, it's not an examination of English eloquence. Yeah, it's not an examination of English eloquence. As long as it makes sense, that's fine. And if English is not your first language, well, that's not a big deal either. I had a student who won a prize in SBL who really wasn't that great in English, and I thought it was fantastic what she did. She read a lot of business English journalism regularly. She understood her English wasn't very good, and she made sure it got better by reading a lot of journalism. That's an excellent, and no surprise she won a prize. So let me give you a recap, and then we'll look at some questions. In terms of a recap, yes, SBL is a very, very different exam. Applied skills concepts, yes, they're relevant, but they're not examined in the same way. Professional skills, if you kind of ignored them, embrace them. Go onto the website. There is a lot of information on professional skills and videos as well. ACCA website, it's the only website I'm really encouraging you to look at. And, in the future, where bots will increasingly be the finance department, that does not mean the end for finance. It means new opportunities for those finance people who, have skepticism, have good communication skills, have good commercial acumen, can provide insights. It's unfortunately a bleak future for those people that can, churn out lots of tax calculations and P&Ls, because a machine will do that all day long. Yeah, and a machine's much cheaper than a human. So SBL is your key to the future of finance. The way to get this exam out of the way as quickly as possible is to practice. Think back to my analogy about learning to drive or learning to swim. Learn to swim. Would you read lots of books on swimming? Maybe watch some videos on Facebook on swimming? No, get in the water and practice and reflect. Get someone to help you who is good at teaching swimming would be my advice. That's what I did when I did exams. But here, don't read books on it. And you've got the ACCA works so hard. They've got a massive team, put loads of great resources out there for you. And I think they must get quite frustrated that there's all this great stuff there that students ignore. I'm telling you, please don't ignore it. It's really going to help you pass the exam. So that is 45 minutes of me, or just under, but we've got 15 minutes to do some questions and answers. So I am just going to have a little look through some Q&As. I've answered a few of them. We've talked about professionals. Is it necessary to mention a model being used? It is not. In the workplace, think of it this way. Let me throw it back to you, Abdul. In the workplace, your boss asks you to do an evaluation of the competition. Can you do a presentation on the evaluation? So you say, according to Michael Porter has 5 forces. 5 forces are threat of new entrants, but people say, sorry, I wanted an evaluation of a competition. Who's Michael Porter? I haven't got a clue. But if you use the Michael Porter model to structure your argument evaluating the competition, that would give you a great answer. But if you mention the model, you'd look a bit weird, to be honest. So the answer to that would be no. In communication-based questions, should we use layman's languages? Well, if I was talking to a bunch of shareholders, no. If I was talking to an HR person, maybe. You have to communicate in the context of the question asked. That's the skill you're being assessed on. Can you tailor your messages according to the audience? Not just do it this way every time. Tailor your message accordingly. What are the common mistakes? What are the key points to attract the examiner? Managing time would be a mistake. So look at the video on time management. Look at planning your answer. Look at focusing on the marks. They are key things. Read the examiner's reports for the common mistakes. They're the same every time. Examiner reports, again, a great resource. The IT evidence of lots of people looking at them, they don't. Crazy. That's the best tip of what's coming in the exam, the examiner's report. What would I be? Well, again, be very careful. If you're wanting tips, it's a very broad exam, and you'll be crazy to think, oh, there's going to be a question on motivation. You've got to have a strategic top-level understanding of the whole syllabus. Yeah, you've got to have digested all the relevant articles that are provided for you very easily to digest on the ACCA platform. What else have we got? We've got, could I advise on a structure to be used while answering a question? More on the application part. There isn't, all questions are applied questions. It's an applied exam. It's not a technical exam. If you're going to give me technical answers, you're not going to get any marks for them. Yeah. And it doesn't look very professional either. It's, you lose professional marks, you lose technical marks. So it's all about application. It's key to be reading the requirements carefully. Yeah. Is there a way that answers can be structured? Yes. Think about communicating at work. How would you communicate with your boss at work? You would communicate in a way that makes it easy to digest the information. You use a subheading. You would leave white space between separate points. From an exam technique perspective, those points you give would be reflective of how many marks are available for that particular task. Yeah. So thanks, Faith. That's a good question. Sometimes you just put in context, you will see suggested approach from the ACCA. These are not, and it does say that in the answer, people don't read it. These are not the expectation of what a student should do, but those answers have a more tutorial purpose. But there are on the ACCA, I think, YouTube channel, examples that I've done previous webinars on where I've shown you what a realistic answer would look like and make your answer more like them. Yeah. Stacey says, I find my slide content not similar to examiner answers. Does this matter? If you're talking about your answer content, as long as you justify, the marking scheme is very broad on SBL and points are given for any relevant point as long as you justify it. And you might think, is that a cop-out? Well, I would throw it back and say, who is correct? Emirates Airline, British Airways, EasyJet, or Ryanair? Which one's correct? And I'd say they're all correct. They're all doing things very differently. They all choose different strategic approaches, but they're all successful and they're all making profits. So which is correct? They're all correct. So answering your question there, Stacey, saying, I find my slide content is not similar. I mean, a slide content, how it's presented should be the same, bullet points, and then the note to each bullet point should be linked, maybe with a subheading, and, you know, presented professionally. But the content of the emphasis, as long as you contextualize what you're saying. How should we revise differently for SBL versus other papers? Well, I think the articles are very relevant on SBL because I think in the world of IT and innovation, it's ever evolving, and that's rightly so. So the articles often pick that up. You should be reflecting on how you answer things. If you can get a study buddy or get someone who knows what they're talking about to market, even better. Yeah. So that's what I'd say there. Yeah, let me just go up. I've got a few more added since I've answered them. What is the new thing that what we examined in this? Well, read the examiner report. In fact, read the last 5 examiner reports, and you'll see that 5 examiner reports ago, the examiner said students aren't doing this, and doing that. So the next exam that the examiner writes, he tests that, and that again, and then read the examiner report of that exam. Students are still not doing this, and this, and it goes on and it goes on. So I would say what's important is to read the examiner's report. Honestly, it's so important of what students, they go off on tangents, they give big fat introductions. It gets no marks. It's not professional. Can the pre-scene give any indication of what will come up in the exam? Not really, no, Shabir. Again, you need to go onto the ACCA platform. You need to read the information on the pre-scene. You need to review the video I've recorded on how to deal with the pre-scene. And we stress there that the pre-scene is a very important piece of information to help you become familiar with the industry, to help you become familiar with terminologies used. But it is not there to give you tips about what's going to come in the exam. Yeah. People some lecturers lecture multiple things. You know, they lecture multiple subjects. They lecture ACCA, CIMA, ICAW, Chartered Accountants of Scotland. And on their exams, a lot of the information in the pre-scene is actually used and is very helpful for the exam. But you're taking an ACCA exam, and sometimes some tutors, because they're very busy and they're teaching many subjects and they don't just specialize in one thing, they miss that fact. So just, you know, no, it's there to help you be able to assimilate the information, the extra information that's going to be given to you in the exam. I'm structuring my paragraphs. Should they be lengthy? Well, would that be professional? You know, think about it. Would you explain everything in every detail? People would be falling asleep in the workplace. A sign of professionalism is the ability to, you know, communicate clearly. There's a famous quote. Mark Twain said, "I'm sorry that this letter is so long, but I didn't have time to write a short one." To write a short, concise letter takes a lot of thought and planning. Otherwise, you can just machine gun every fact you know onto the paper. That's not professionalism. So don't do that. What have we got? How to deal with practice questions. When you get the exam, you'll have read the pre-scene material. You will read the tasks first and then read the exhibits, because then you read the exhibits with context. If you just read the exhibits, they're kind of a bit abstract. They link to nothing. So you've got the pre-scene material, you've reviewed it, you understand all of that. The exam comes along, and then you look at the exhibit. You look at the tasks. What are they asking? Okay, they're asking. And then you read the exhibits, and you look at those exhibits with context. Hopefully that helps you on that. Matthias, if we have personal way of writing, sometimes using less formal, can it be treated as unprofessional? Yes. Yes. So it's context, Matthias, context. We don't have one way of writing. Yeah. I don't talk to my friends in the same way I talk to a policeman who stops me on the road. You know, I tailor my communication. If I'm talking to a financial analyst, who is representing shareholders, I'll talk to them in lots of complex financial jargon language, which they expect of me. But if I was talking to a shareholder in a shareholder meeting who's just a small-time shareholder, a granny, of course I wouldn't. In a bullet point format, I wouldn't use a bullet point format unless it's been asked for. Yeah, in a bullet point format, you're asking the marker to interpret the meaning of what you've given. Yeah, why not tell the marker what you're trying to say, and then you'll get the marks. Okay, so I think we've got a 5-minute warning before we are finished. Let me see. I've got a good understanding of the theories. It's not about, well, okay, but it's about applying the theories, which is most important. Can I focus on past papers? I would say so. I would say you need to have summarized the theories your way. I do a bit of work with neuroscientists, and in the way I help students pass exams, I use mind maps. I get them to summarize their own stuff. A lot of them want, oh, what, can you give me pocket notes or give me 20 pages of notes? The problem with that is they're not your notes, they're someone else's, and they're not actually very effective of retaining information. So my advice, based on neuroscientists who are brain experts, is for you to summarize notes your way and keep reviewing them. And often the summation, if you can do it visually, 95% of us have a visual brain as opposed to reading lots of stuff. That's going to help best. So that will be my advice there. Rachel says, I think this is probably the last one. During my studies, there are lots of terms and words that are mostly UK knowledge. Will this be an issue in the exam? I think the ACCA are very keen to make sure, and the examining team is a multinational team. So I don't agree with you that the words are UK knowledge. They're in business English, if that's what you mean by UK knowledge. Business English, which is used in Singapore, which is used in Hong Kong, which is used in Australia. Yeah, for example, I've never heard the term a food discounter until recently. Okay, well, that's fair point, but the term food discounter would be presented to you in the pre-scene material. So if that term food discounter was not familiar to you, although it is a fairly common business strategy practiced by food retailers throughout the world, I travel all over the world and I see that. But hey, say you didn't know that terminology, that's what the pre-scene is doing for you. It is giving you an opportunity to explore what that terminology actually means. So yes, that's the whole point of the pre-scene. So any terms that would be brought up in the actual exam would have been brought to your attention in the pre-scene. So please digest the pre-scene carefully. And that is a fantastic question, Rachel. Do we need to provide conclusions? This is the very last. Be careful. Big fat introductions, big fat conclusions tend to not get a lot of marks. So if you've got time, yes, but I wouldn't be taking time away from giving good points if I want to maximize my marks. So I hope that's been helpful. That's a lot of stuff to digest. I would maybe suggest watch this again, maybe stop it and reflect. Where are you as a person compared to the person I'm asking you to be? Are you looking at lots of rubbish on Facebook? Are you not spending enough time on the ACCA platform practicing? Plenty of time to change. We've got 4 weeks till the exam, but please do something about it. Yeah, it's no fun being a part qualified accountant. You want to try to be qualified as soon as possible. Your career will take off. Your salary will take off. Yeah, have that in mind when you don't fancy studying. It's quite a good deal you're getting. Qualify as an accountant and you suddenly get all these benefits. Nobody else gets that. They have to work hard for years to go up the ladder. You go up the ladder by passing an exam. Please take the opportunity. Okay, so thanks for listening. Risha's just going to conclude, I think.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. Before we close the session, I would like to remind all of you that we will have SBL in focus session as well on 13th of August at 1 p.m. BST, in which we will cover examiner's report and will help you know that how you can make best use of the resources available in the practice platform, like marking guide, for example, while doing the exam practice. So make sure that you register yourself for this wonderful session to come. Registration link is available in the resource section. All right, that brings us to the end of today's live session. And I really hope you found this one helpful and picked up some useful tips as well. So, before we wrap up completely, just a quick reminder to check out the updated resources in resource section. They will be super handy as you prepare for your exam. And don't worry, if you miss anything, you can always watch the recording of the session. You will get an email tomorrow with the link of the recording, or you can use the same registration link also to watch it on demand. So, a big thank you to all of you for joining us today. Thanks so much to Sean for your support, and a special shout out to the team working behind the scene to help make this session run smoothly. Wish you all the best for your exams.